A decision that once something must be done, it will be done regardless of the internal resistance. Think about how fragile motivation really is. It depends on inspiration, on external triggers, on temporary emotional highs. It is like fire made of paper, bright, intense, but short-lived. Discipline, on the other hand, is like a slow-burning flame that never goes out. It is not exciting, it is not emotional, but it is dependable. And in the long run, dependability always defeats intensity. The truth is, most people do not fail because life is too hard. They fail because they only act when it feels easy. They build a habit of avoidance disguised as waiting. They tell themselves they will start tomorrow, when they feel better, when they are more ready, when conditions improve. But tomorrow becomes another tomorrow, and readiness becomes an excuse that keeps them comfortable and stagnant. A disciplined person lives by a different code. They understand that feelings are temporary, but actions create permanent outcomes, so they reverse the process. Instead of waiting to feel motivated to act, they act first and allow action to shape their feelings. Because once you begin, something shifts, resistance weakens, momentum builds, and suddenly what felt impossible becomes manageable. There is a quiet power in doing things when you do not feel like doing them. It builds a kind of inner authority. Each time you act despite resistance, you send a message to yourself that you are not controlled by comfort, not ruled by emotion, not limited by temporary weakness. And over time, this message becomes your identity. Most people are trained, without realizing it, to follow their emotions. If they feel tired, they rest. If they feel bored, they escape. If they feel uncomfortable, they stop. But this creates a life where they are constantly reacting instead of leading. Their emotions become their master, and they become the servant. Discipline reverses this relationship. It places you in control. You still feel everything, the resistance, the doubt, the fatigue, but you are no longer governed by it. You observe it, and then you act anyway. This is not suppression, it is mastery. Understand that the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not filled with talent or luck. It is filled with repeated actions that most people are unwilling to take consistently. And the reason they are unwilling is simple. Those actions are often uncomfortable, repetitive, and invisible in their results. Waking up early when your body wants more sleep. Working when your mind seeks distraction. Continuing when progress feels slow. These are not grand, heroic moments. They are small, almost unnoticeable decisions. But they are powerful because they accumulate. A person who relies on mood might work intensely for a day, then stop for 3. A disciplined person works steadily every day, even if the effort is imperfect. And over time, steady effort surpasses bursts of intensity, not because it is stronger in any single moment, but because it never stops. You must also understand that discipline is not something you are born with. It is something you build like a muscle. In the beginning, it feels unnatural. You will face resistance. Your mind will offer excuses that seem logical and convincing. It will tell you that today is not the right day, that you deserve a break, that you can start later. And if you listen, you strengthen that voice. But if you act despite it, you weaken it. You create a new pattern. You begin to prove to yourself that you are capable of doing what needs to be done, even when it is difficult. And with each repetition, it becomes easier. Not because the task changes, but because you change. There is also a deeper layer to this. Discipline is not just about productivity or achievement. It is about self-respect. When you repeatedly fail to follow through on what you said you would do, you begin to lose trust in yourself. Your words lose weight. Your commitments feel empty. And this creates an internal conflict that affects every area of your life. But when you develop discipline, you restore that trust. You become someone who acts with intention, someone whose actions align with their decisions. And this alignment creates confidence, not the loud, temporary kind, but a quiet, unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. The reality is simple, even if it is uncomfortable. You will not always feel ready. You will not always feel motivated. You will not always feel capable. But none of these feelings are requirements for action. They are distractions that test your commitment. If you wait for them to align, you will wait forever. But if you learn to move without them, you gain an advantage that most people never develop. Because while they are waiting to feel right, you are already moving forward. And in the end, that is what separates those who remain average from those who rise above. Not intelligence, not opportunity, but the ability to act when action is hardest. The ability to choose discipline over mood again and again until it is no longer a choice but who you are. There is a truth that most people avoid because it demands responsibility at a level they are not ready to accept. It is far easier to blame circumstances than to confront the chaos within. People look outward for the source of their problems. They point to situations, to other people, to bad luck, to timing. They build a narrative where life happens to them, and in doing so, they surrender the only domain where they truly have power. Your inner world is that domain. It is the space where thoughts are formed, where meaning is assigned, where reactions are chosen. It is invisible to others, yet it shapes everything visible in your life. Two people can face the same event, the same difficulty, the same loss, and walk away with entirely different outcomes. Not because the event changed, but because their interpretation of it did. This is where control begins. Not over what happens, but over how you perceive what happens. Most people never learn this distinction. They believe that their emotions are direct results of external events. They say they are angry because of what someone did, stressed because of what is happening, anxious because of what might go wrong. But what they fail to see is that between the event and the emotion, there is a thought, a judgment, a silent interpretation that defines how the event is experienced. And this interpretation is not fixed. It is not absolute. It is chosen, often unconsciously, but still chosen. If you do not take control of your thoughts, they will take control of you. They will run automatically, shaped by habit, fear, past experiences, and external influences. And when thoughts run unchecked, they create reactions that feel inevitable, but are actually conditioned. You begin to live in a cycle where your mind dictates your state, and your state dictates your actions, and your actions reinforce your circumstances. This is how people become trapped without ever realizing they are the ones holding the key. To control the inner world is not to silence thoughts completely. That is neither realistic nor necessary. It is to observe them without immediately believing them. To create a space between what arises in your mind and what you choose to act upon. In that space lies freedom. When something happens, your first reaction is often emotional and instinctive. It is fast, automatic, and rarely rational. But you are not obligated to follow it. You can pause. You can question it. You can ask whether this reaction serves you or weakens you. This pause is powerful. It disrupts the chain that most people live within unconsciously. Consider how much energy is wasted on things beyond control. Worrying about opinions, replaying past mistakes, fearing uncertain futures, reacting to minor provocation. These mental patterns consume attention, drain focus, and create unnecessary suffering. And yet they feel real, urgent, important, but they are not. They are distractions of the mind, pulling you away from what actually matters, the present moment, where action is possible. To control your inner world is to redirect your focus deliberately. It is to decide what deserves your attention and what does not. Because attention is not passive, it is an investment. Wherever you place it, that area grows in significance. If you focus on problems, they expand. If you focus on progress, it strengthens. This is why mastering attention is essential. The world is filled with noise, with triggers designed to provoke reactions, to capture your focus, to keep your mind occupied with things that do not improve your life. If you do not guard your attention, it will be taken from you constantly. And when your attention is scattered, your mind becomes weak. Not because you lack intelligence, but because you lack direction. A controlled mind is a focused mind. It knows where to look and where not to look. It does not chase every thought, every emotion, every impulse. It selects, it filters, it decides. There is also strength in how you interpret adversity. Difficulty is unavoidable. Challenges will come, often without warning, often without fair. But the meaning you assign to them determines their impact. You can see hardship as an obstacle, something that blocks you, something that justifies stopping. Or you can see it as a test, something that reveals your character, something that strengthens your resilience. The situation remains the same, but the outcome changes completely based on your perspective. This is not blind positivity, it is strategic thinking. By choosing interpretations that empower you, you create an advantage. You transform obstacles into opportunities for growth. You turn setbacks into lessons, and in doing so, you maintain forward movement while others remain stuck, overwhelmed by the same conditions. Reactions also define your reality. A moment of anger can destroy relationships. A moment of fear can prevent opportunity. A moment of doubt can stop progress entirely. These reactions feel justified in the moment, but they often lead to consequences that extend far beyond that moment. If you learn to control your reactions, you begin to shape your outcomes more deliberately. You respond instead of react. You act with intention instead of impulse. This level of control is rare. Most people live reactively, pulled in different directions by their emotions. But those who develop inner control operate differently. They remain steady in situations that disturb others. They think clearly under pressure. They maintain composure when it matters most. This is not because they feel less, but because they are not ruled by what they feel. There is a calmness that comes from this mastery. Not a passive calmness, but a grounded stability. You begin to realize that external chaos does not have to become internal chaos, that you can remain centered even when things around you are uncertain. And this calmness is powerful. It allows you to make better decisions, to see situations more clearly, to act with precision instead of panic. Ultimately, controlling your inner world is about reclaiming responsibility. It is about understanding that while you cannot dictate everything that happens, you can dictate how you engage with it. You can choose your thoughts. You can direct your focus. You can regulate your reactions. And in doing so, you gain something most people never truly experience: control over your own life. Not control in the sense of eliminating uncertainty or difficulty, but control in the sense of not being broken by them, of not being defined by them, of not allowing them to dictate your path. When your inner world is stable, your outer world becomes easier to navigate, because no matter what happens, you carry with you a strength that cannot be taken away. And that strength is what places you ahead of the majority, not because your life is easier, but because your mind is stronger. There is a quiet truth that most people underestimate because it lacks excitement. People are drawn to big moments. They admire sudden transformations, dramatic efforts, bursts of energy where everything seems to change at once. They wait for these moments in their own lives, believing that one day they will wake up with a surge of motivation strong enough to alter their path completely. And sometimes that moment comes. They work harder than ever before, push themselves beyond their usual limits, and for a short time they feel unstoppable. But then something happens. The intensity fades. What felt powerful becomes exhausting. What felt exciting becomes difficult to sustain. And slowly, almost invisibly, they return to their old patterns. Not because they failed in that moment of effort, but because they could not maintain it. The problem was never their ability to act, but their inability to continue. Consistency is different. It does not rely on emotional highs. It does not demand perfection. It is built on repetition, on showing up again and again, regardless of whether the effort feels significant in the moment. And because of this, it appears small, almost insignificant, easy to overlook, but that is its greatest strength. Small actions, when repeated daily, begin to accumulate, not in a way that is immediately visible, but in a way that becomes undeniable over time. Like drops of water that slowly carve through stone, consistent effort reshapes your reality in ways that sudden intensity never can. The reason most people fail to embrace consistency is because they are focused on immediate results. They measure their progress too quickly. They expect visible change after a short period, and when they do not see it, they assume their effort is not working, so they stop. But what they do not understand is that progress is often invisible in the beginning. The work you do today may not show results tomorrow or even next week. But it is not wasted. It is building beneath the surface, creating a foundation that will eventually support visible growth. Consider how skills are developed. No one becomes exceptional in a single moment. It is the result of countless repetitions, each one refining ability, each one strengthening understanding. At any given point, a single effort may seem small, but combined over time, they create mastery. The same principle applies to every area of life. Whether it is learning, building, improving your health, or developing discipline, the outcome is determined not by what you do occasionally, but by what you do consistently. Consistency also removes the pressure of perfection. When you rely on intensity, you feel the need to perform at your highest level every time. You set unrealistic expectations, and when you fall short, you feel discouraged. But consistency allows for imperfection. It accepts that some days will be better than others, that effort may vary, but what matters is that you continue. This creates sustainability, and sustainability is what leads to long-term success. There is also a psychological shift that occurs when you become consistent. Your identity begins to change. You no longer see yourself as someone who tries, but as someone who does. You build trust with yourself because you prove, through repeated action, that you can be relied upon. This trust is powerful. It eliminates doubt. It reduces hesitation. It creates a sense of stability that allows you to move forward with confidence, not because you believe in sudden success, but because you believe in your ability to keep going. Most people underestimate how rare this is. They start many things but finish few. They move from one idea to another, one plan to another, always seeking something that feels easier, faster, more rewarding in the short term. But in doing so, they never stay long enough in one direction to see meaningful results. Consistency requires commitment. It requires staying on a path even when progress feels slow, even when results are not immediately visible, even when distractions offer more appealing alternatives. It is not exciting, but it is effective. There is also a compounding effect to consistent action. Each day builds upon the previous one. Each effort adds to what has already been done. And over time, this creates momentum. What once felt difficult becomes easier, not because the task itself changes, but because you have adapted to it. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces you can create in your life. Once it builds, it carries you forward. It reduces resistance. It makes continuation feel natural instead of forced. But it can only be built through consistency. Without consistency, there is no momentum. Only repeated restarts. And each restart is costly. It requires rebuilding energy, refocusing attention, overcoming resistance all over again. This is why inconsistent effort feels so exhausting. It is not the work itself, but the constant starting and stopping that drains you. Consistency eliminates this cycle. It keeps you moving even if the pace is slow. There is also a deeper truth within this principle. Consistency is a reflection of discipline, and discipline is a reflection of values. When you act consistently, you are demonstrating that what you are doing matters to you. That it is not dependent on how you feel, but on what you have decided is important. This alignment between values and actions creates strength. It gives your efforts meaning beyond immediate results. It allows you to continue even when motivation fades, because your actions are no longer driven by emotion, but by purpose. It is important to understand that consistency does not mean rigidity. It does not mean forcing yourself in a way that leads to burnout. It means maintaining direction, adapting when necessary, but not abandoning the path entirely. It is about persistence, not perfection. Over time, the difference between consistent and inconsistent individuals becomes clear. It is not always visible in the beginning. In fact, at first they may appear similar. Both may have the same goals, the same ambitions, even the same starting point. But as days turn into weeks and weeks into months, a gap begins to form. The consistent individual moves forward steadily, building upon each effort. The inconsistent one remains in cycles, making progress, losing it, starting again. And eventually that gap becomes impossible to ignore. This is why consistency places you ahead of the majority, not because it is extraordinary, but because it is rare. Most people are not willing to do the same thing every day without immediate reward. They seek variety, excitement, quick result. But those who understand the power of repetition, who are willing to embrace the slow process, who commit to showing up regardless of how they feel, gain an advantage that compounds over time. In the end, it is not the intensity of your efforts that defines your success, but their continuity. Not how hard you work in a single moment, but how often you return to the work. Because the person who shows up every day, even imperfectly, will always surpass the one who shows up occasionally, even brilliantly. At this point, you don't need more information. You don't need another video, another strategy. Another burst of motivation that fades the moment life becomes uncomfortable again, because now you already see it. You see the pattern. You see what separates those who move forward from those who remain stuck in the same cycle, repeating the same days, hoping for a different outcome. It was never something complicated. It was never something out of reach. It was always in the small things you choose to do when no one is watching. The moments where you either follow comfort or you follow discipline. The moments where you either let your thoughts control you or you take control of them. The moments where you either stop because it feels hard or continue because you decided it matters. This is where your future is decided, not in one big decision, but in hundreds of small ones that seem insignificant in the moment, yet shape everything over time. Understand this clearly. Most people will hear these ideas, feel inspired for a short time, and then go back to their old habits, not because they don't want to change, but because change requires consistency, and consistency requires effort without immediate reward. They will wait for motivation again. They will wait for the right time, and life will continue exactly the same. But you don't have to be one of them, because right now you are at a point where you can choose differently. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. In the next action you take after this video ends, you don't need to transform your entire life overnight. You don't need to be perfect. All you need is to begin. To take one action that aligns with the person you know you should become, and then repeat it again, and again, and again. Because that is how momentum is built. That is how discipline is formed. That is how identity changes. And once that shift happens, everything else begins to follow. There will be days when you don't feel like continuing. Days when your mind resists. When progress feels slow, when doubt tries to pull you back into old patterns. But those are the moments that matter the most, because every time you continue despite that resistance, you are separating yourself from the version of you that would have stopped. You are becoming stronger, not in a way that is loud or visible to others, but in a way that is real and unshakable. And over time, that strength will show itself in your results, in your mindset, in the way you carry yourself, in the way you live. So don't leave this as just another video you watched. Let it be a turning point, a moment where you stop waiting, stop hesitating, stop negotiating with your own potential, and start acting like the person you are capable of becoming. Because in the end, your life will not be defined by what you intended to do. It will be defined by what you actually did. And that is still in your control.